How was your day?
My day, pretty good so far. I guess it just got a little bit better hanging out with all.
Happy Friday!
Right. Okay, and Anna's in this class too.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I remember individual people, but it's not. I don't necessarily make all of the associations. So this was definitely a good choice. Okay, I've got so far 0 viewers. We are broadcasting. Still trying to get a few things set up here.
You favorited my tweets. Yeah, you favorited my too.
All right, there we go. That took so much effort to favorite those tweets too. So hopefully y'all appreciate that.
I'm the one that sent you that Russian pun.
What's that? Whoa. Let's see. Where's that buzzing coming from? Is that on y'all's end or my end?
Yeah, we don't hear it.
Okay, you don't hear it. Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I don't have any viewers right now online, but usually that takes a few minutes. But the main point here is for me to do a little Q&A with Ms. Kline's class, several of whom have been really great about engaging me on Twitter and Instagram and all of that kind of stuff. So that's really appreciated. And hopefully I'll do some more live hangouts with some more Euro classes and that sort of thing before it's all said and done. We've got the exam in just little less than 2 months, okay? So it's almost the Ides of March. That's going to be tomorrow. So beware the Ides of March. Also beware the 8th of May. And let's go ahead while we're preparing for the 8th of May. I believe that Ms. Kline's class just did a review session on the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, correct?
Yeah. This morning.
Okay, sounds good. Well, do y'all have any questions for me? Let's go ahead and get the Q&A started, and I'll be checking Twitter as well, but I'll be taking most of the questions for Ms. Kline's class here.
Okay, just go for it. Go ahead. Okay, so my question is about the Enlightenment.
What is Enlightenment?
Did the Enlightenment happen like everywhere at the same time?
No, seriously, what is Enlightenment?
What is the Enlightenment? What?
Yeah. Okay. I'm making a lame reference to Kant here, just kind of playing around with that. Okay, did it happen everywhere at the same time? Not necessarily everywhere at once. Keep in mind, I mean, you've got different thinkers around really from the mid 18th century into the early 19th century, and then you've got the influencers from the late 17th century, like Locke and Newton. Keep in mind, a lot of people confound Locke and Newton. Like, I think this is probably more of kind of a minor error, but it's still an error when I grade FRQs from students who are writing about the Enlightenment. The question is about the Enlightenment. They should be talking about the philosophers like Voltaire and Kant and Diderot and other people like that, but then they bring in Newton, they bring in Locke, which certainly Newton and Locke would have influenced the Enlightenment, but they're not really of the Enlightenment. I mean, to identify Newton or Locke as a philosopher would be a mistake. So really, you've kind of got to look at the Enlightenment as something that is coming of age, because a lot of the precursors are set up by the scientific revolution, and the Enlightenment's really borrowing from that. The way that my professor explained it was that what you're doing here is where the people of the scientific revolution, they are using, they're doing the scientific method and all of that kind of stuff, but they're really applying this stuff to science. And what the Enlightenment is getting this scientific revolution, emphasis on science and rational thought, and applying it to society, and not just applying it to science experiments. Like Bacon would do stuff like, I think he died doing some kind of experiment on chickens, seeing how long they could stay outside or something like that in the cold before they froze to death. That's certainly great if you're just curious about science. Of course, Anna, you probably don't like all that cruelty to animals stuff. You and Bacon probably wouldn't get along, but at the same time, this is kind of the scientific revolution sort of thing. Descartes, like, look, oh, I got a Cartesian plane and that sort of thing. But the philosophes are thinking more along the lines of how can we apply this rationally? And of course, that is the epicenter of the Enlightenment is in France, but you've also got Enlightenment in Scotland, Enlightenment in Prussia, and the Holy Roman Empire, I guess, which of course Voltaire said was neither of those three. But anyway, hopefully that kind of clarifies. I mean, it's just like any other movement that's going on kind of here and here and here and sort of catching on, you know, even in Russia with Catherine the Great and some of these enlightened absolutists with Frederick the Great and Joseph II, the not-so-great, as I call him.
That was another question you guys had, is about the despots themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Okay. Who do you think was the most enlightened despot and why?
The most enlightened. Well, the thing is, if you look at it on the scale of ambition, it would be Joseph II, because Joseph II really did kind of the bull in the china shop thing, where you take Catherine the Great, and from what I can tell, Catherine the Great, it's not really much in her program of enlightened absolutism other than, hey, look, I started a few schools or something like that. Hey, look, I bought Diderot's library and I'm paying him to be the librarian. That really for her, like, look, I have all of these philosophes coming in and we have dinner and we say smart stuff to each other. But Catherine the Great was very reliant on the nobility. And so she wasn't really ever able to challenge the nobility, and really the program of social reform in Russia was very limited. Now, if you want to see the most effective, that would be Frederick the Great, because Frederick the Great was able to make several reforms, such as civil service and introducing the potato and all kinds of other stuff. So Frederick really, I would say, is the most successful as far as you can look at actual reforms that happened. Now, Joseph II was the most ambitious. Joseph II's like, hey, serfdom, that's not very enlightened, let's free the serfs. And he's not really consulting the nobility, and that's, you know, that's kind of limited as far as what you can do. Now, of course, on the new exam next year, there's going to be an emphasis on comparisons, so you can look at kind of what's going on in our politics today in the United States, where President Obama is only able to do so much because he's not really effectively cooperating with the Republicans in Congress. And you could say the same thing vice versa, that you can't really take a look at President Obama's term, you know, since 2011, and see a lot of major achievements because there's not really a lot of buy-in. And I would say that you could probably compare, like, of course, this isn't this year, but if you're taking APUSH next year, which, how many of y'all are taking APUSH next year?
Yeah.
So in APUSH next year, I'm going to go ahead and kind of preview that for y'all, that you're going to be expected to make some comparisons between historical periods. So I would say that Joseph II would be a lot like President Obama, you know, in the sense of having an ambitious agenda, but not really effectively cooperating with the other, you know, powers in the government and that sort of thing. So I think that may be a valid comparison, because Joseph tried to free the serfs, then he launched a full-scale program of religious toleration, which even allowed private worship for Jews, like that sort of thing, and he's trying to kind of assimilate the Jewish community, trying to take some steps there. So he was really forward-thinking, but a lot of his stuff was undone, and in fact, Joseph said that he wanted on his tomb, "Here lies Joseph II, who failed at everything he did." And one thing that I note is that the enlightened absolutists, I mean, you think about, there are three of them, but they're all the second. Catherine II, Frederick II, Joseph II. But Catherine and Frederick are both known as the Great, and that's why I call Joseph the not-so-great. So it's really kind of a loaded question. Now, keep in mind, I've got a video on the enlightened absolutists that y'all probably already looked at, and they're really measured by those criterion of, you know, are they patronizing philosophy? Are they making meaningful social reform? Of course, all of them are trying to do this to use the Enlightenment to consolidate their power. And before I take the next question, I need to give a shout out to Mr. Savage from the West Coast. I guess we are all about the West Coast today. So that's, yeah, I hear that this class loves me. Thank you, Nico, for that shout out on Twitter, @TomRichey. If you have a question or anything like that, I'm going to be taking a look at Twitter while we're doing this, maybe even Instagram here and there. All right, next question from Ms. Kline's class.
We were wondering if you could explain deism a little bit.
Deism, I tell you what, oh gosh, I love to talk about deism. How many of y'all seen my video on deism?
I haven't watched it actually, which.
Okay, well there's one, and I don't know if I've like playlisted, but what I did was I was on my way home and I decided just to stop, and I did just one of those little like, you know, handheld like selfie mode videos, and there's this old church on my way home, and this old church, they call it the Old Stone Church, and it's sitting there in a very nice natural setting. It's got trees around it and all of that kind of stuff. And in that video, it's about a 3-minute little video, really easy to kind of go into, but when you search for deism, I think it comes up second or third or something like that. Tom Richey deism will come up first. But I mean, I love talking about deism because this is something that has some overlap. Like, you all raised your hand, you're taking APUSH, you're going to be really pleased. Like, right now, if you're in 10th grade and you're taking AP Euro and you try to tell me that you're glad you took AP Euro, you are probably a liar. I mean, I typically don't expect 10th graders. Am I wrong?
No, it's
okay. And I mean, as much as we all love Miss Kline, it's one of those courses that it's very demanding on a 10th grader, but then sometimes seniors who take it. Are y'all all in 10th grade, no seniors?
yeah.
Okay, and you know, typically about 2/3 of the people that take this course, they're sophomores without any AP experience. Now, when you get an APUSH next year, you're going to understand POV, like they're doing this new APUSH DBQ is very friendly to people who've taken Euro, but this is one of those things, there are going to be things that you're going to study in APUSH, and you're going to be thinking, I am so glad I took Euro because I already have this background when you get into World War I from a United States perspective and all of that kind of stuff. So with that being said, deism is really what it is there are two types of religion, all right? There are two, and all of us really, like even if you are a Christian or Jew or Muslim, Hindu or anything, you really borrow from both of these, all right? When we think about religion, there is on one hand natural religion. All right, and this is where you go out into the woods, you go camping, something like that. I tell you what, I went to Wyoming a few years back, and I'd never really experienced being that far out in the woods and away from stuff and really seeing the stars so clearly and all that kind of stuff. And I went up this, I don't know if it was a big hill or a small mountain. I'll call it a small mountain. I climbed a mountain like Petrarch or something like that, okay? So I climbed this mountain, and it was nighttime, and I was up there, I was looking at the stars, and it was like, hey, God, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, it was pretty cool. That is natural religion, okay? That is the sort of religion that, now, some of the people watching may not believe in God, and that's, you know, that's fine and good. We're in America and all that kind of stuff. But natural religion is when you can go out. Now, certainly we can't prove that there is a God, but I think that we can go outside and we can find evidence, all right? Even a lot of people that I know that are atheist or atheist leaning, they admit that, you know, I guess somebody could see some evidence of God out there. And for most people, this natural religion where you encounter God in nature and you think about, especially in a Newtonian sense, where physics is understandable, not like modern day, like all chaotic relativity physics that I don't understand, but the Newtonian physics that I may be able to pretend that I understand for a bit, because it kind of makes sense. Because Newtonian physics, it's like, okay, everything, you know, the law of universal gravitation, there are natural laws that apply all the time. Everything makes sense, all right? And when we look at that, you think, wait, how would this happen without an intelligent being? Voltaire, who was, you know, really the most famous deist of that time, the most famous philosopher in general, Voltaire said something to the extent, and if anyone watching is an atheist, I'm sorry, but he said that you've pretty much got to be an idiot to be an atheist. You've got to be just a total moron to go outside and look at nature and not see evidence of God. Like, if you ask Voltaire, do you have faith in God? He'd say no. I believe that there is, I mean, I have evidence of God. You know, faith is the substance. I mean, the Bible says something, I'm going to probably slaughter this, but I believe it's in Hebrews where the Bible says that faith is the substance of things not seen and the substance of things hoped for. Like, I don't see it, but I hope for it. I have no evidence, but I think it's coming. All right, good luck with that, right? If you're coming from an enlightened perspective. And, you know, the Enlightenment is all about empiricism. So what deism is, it is an embrace of this natural religion that there is a God out there, but it is a rejection of revealed religion, okay? Now, revealed religion, this is where you look at a sacred text, such as the Bible or the Quran or something like that, and you see things there. So I open up the Bible, and thanks to the Bible, I can see that I am a sinner, that I need to be saved by grace, and all of that kind of stuff. That, you know, perhaps depending on what side of the whole Reformation thing you're on, you may have to do some good works to kind of, you know, not to earn your way to heaven, but really just to kind of show your sincerity, because you have free will. And if you are a Christian, you'll do that. So the Bible tells us all kinds of things. Now, some of the things are just kind of natural. A lot of the teachings of Jesus are really just kind of, you know, common sense. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And this is the Jesus of Voltaire and Jefferson. Now, if you haven't read Voltaire's bit on religion from the Philosophical Dictionary, you can go to Google or something like that, and you can look this up. It's really great. And this is where I kind of lifted that quote where Voltaire is talking about let's see, about atheists being a bunch of idiots. Now I'm trying to share my screen with you. All right, so let's see if I can get this. Computer's acting a little bit slow, so I may have to unshare it. But Voltaire. Okay, so if you look this up, there's this thing by Voltaire in the Philosophical Dictionary's entry on religion, and this is taking a while to come up, so I think I'm just going to kind of give up on the whole screen sharing thing. I'm on my laptop, so it's just not quite as advanced. Okay, come on, come back. All right. So when you look at this, it's like he has a conversation with Socrates, then he has a conversation with someone whom we can presume to be Jesus. And he never really identifies him. I love reading this to my class, and then there's always this person who's like, hey, that's Jesus. And I'm like, oh, what gave it away? Was it like the nails in his hands and the blood and all that kind of stuff? What gave it away? But really, when Voltaire looks at Jesus, he sees a philosopher. And he looks at the teachings of Jesus Christ, and, you know, do unto others as you would have do unto you. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Love God, okay? So Jesus is like, look, man, people have misunderstood me. And when he's talking to Voltaire, Voltaire asks him some questions, and he says, like, didn't you say one time that you come to bring not peace, but a sword? And Jesus is like, whoa, you know, because there's that part in the gospel when Jesus says that. He's like, hey, I didn't come to bring peace, I came to bring a sword. And you're like, whoa, this is kind of like I read the other stuff, and this thing doesn't seem to mesh. And this guy that Voltaire's talking to, guy with a capital G, I guess you could say, but he says, I didn't say that. I told him that I didn't come to bring a sword, but peace. And, you know, maybe some scribe messed that up. So Voltaire doesn't really trust in the infallibility of the scriptures or anything like that. In fact, he looks at miracles. Deists don't believe in miracles. And they believe that, you know, the thing is, God set up a natural order in the universe. God didn't have anything holding him back. A miracle is a negation of natural law, and therefore illogical, and therefore not something that the enlightened philosophers are going to believe in. So revealed religion, so Jefferson, for example, okay, I love me some Jefferson, and Jefferson was a deist. And what he did in his retirement is he got the Bible and like took a razor blade to it, and he cut out all this stuff, and he made himself what's called the Jefferson Bible, or the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. And what he did was he got all of the teachings of Jesus and all of the stories, but he took out anything miraculous. So for example, there's that passage where Jesus is like, you know, he gets lost, like little preteen Jesus gets lost, and Mary and Joseph are looking for him. And they just like freak out. And finally they go to the temple, and Jesus is sitting there talking to everybody and at the temple. And the people are just like, whoa, this kid is smart. And Jesus looks at Mary and Joseph. His mom's just like freaking out, and Jesus is like, "Come on, Mom, didn't you know I'd be at my Father's house? You know, like really? I mean, come on. I mean, didn't you get my text or something like that?" And you know, so the thing is, in the Jefferson Bible, it's like, whoa, Mary's freaking out, all that kind of stuff, and they go to the temple and there's Jesus. It's like that's it. He cuts that out. Any reference to Jesus being the Son of God or a deity takes that out, and that's what they call Christian deism, like people like Voltaire and Jefferson, who are like, you know, I'm all into the philosophical teachings of Jesus, but I don't believe in the revealed portion of the Christian religion. So keep in mind, I want you to keep in mind that although people like Voltaire are going to be referred to by contemporaries as atheists and stuff like that, it's really not the case. So that's just because he doesn't believe in Christianity. And he's not hostile to religion. He's hostile to what he calls fanaticism. And this is where you think about fanaticism. What do y'all think about when y'all think about fanaticism in general?
Yes, not people who are crazy.
You're crazy. You're
People who are crazy. Okay, now what is the root word of fanatic?
fan.
I don't know.
Fan. And this is where, like, I live about a mile from Clemson University, and we go to the football games every once in a while, and we're fans. We wear orange. We cheer Clemson. We, people are yelling how much the other team sucks and all of that kind of stuff. And really, how I would define fanaticism, and here's the mug, Meg. So it is there. Okay, you did find it. Okay, so the mug is there. I made sure to brew some tea for this because I figured somebody would ask, even though I typically prefer water. Water is my live hangout beverage of choice a lot of times. But fanaticism, I would say this is when you turn religion into a contest, like a sporting event or something like that. And it's like, I'm team Protestant, I'm team Catholic, I'm team whatever. And you know what? Like, if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to kill you. There's another thing. Did y'all read Candide?
No.
No.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about Candide. There's the scene in Candide where he goes to the Netherlands. And Candide, this is kind of near the beginnings. It's like a major spoiler. You should read that book. Everybody should read it at some point. Maybe good spring break, something or other. But the thing is that, I think it's a great little short exposition of the Enlightenment. It's hilarious. But Candide is in the Netherlands, and he goes up to a church, and they're the Dutch Reformed Church. This is a Calvinist-type church. And he asks the person at the church, he's like, do you have any food? He's hungry, okay? And the guy at the church says, do you believe that the Pope is the Antichrist? And Candide's like, I have no idea, but I know that I'm hungry and that I need food. And the guy's just like, get away from me. And what happens here is that there's this guy who's an Anabaptist. Now, where I'm from here in the South, Baptists are the majority religious group, or at least the plurality. They're more Baptists than anywhere else. But in Europe at that time, the Anabaptists were kind of the freak show of the Reformation or whatever. These were people that were even reviled by Protestants, and they were a group that really wasn't recognized as being valid by most people. And this guy comes up who's an Anabaptist, and he says, hey, come over here, let me get you something to eat, and let me take care of you, and that sort of thing. And the point that Voltaire is making is that this guy who was a Calvinist and part of the accepted Christian religion, that he was not acting as a Christian because he did not follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. The Enlightenment's not about, like, up there. The Enlightenment is about here and now. And it's the Anabaptist who comes along and says, hey, I'll help you, and that's the real Christian. Now, any of y'all watch South Park?
No.
Okay, that was like a big thing when I was in, I guess not as many people watch it now, but there's a South Park episode where at the end of it, asking Jesus, they said, what is the best religion? Like, who was right? And Jesus says, well, it was the Mormons. And it's kind of a similar vibe that Voltaire's going for, that Voltaire, like his true Christian, is actually part of a religious sect that is not, part of the majority opinion and not seen by many as a mainstream Christian sect. So, I've already got that 3-minute video on deism, so I figured I might want a little more detail. I hope you got what you were looking for.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I'm breaking up a little bit. Okay, so are y'all at least hearing me?
Yeah, it'll get a little scratchy occasionally.
Okay, let's see. I'm on this. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is looking a little bit sketchy. I don't know why that is. But hopefully, like, let me know if it gets to be a big problem. But I'm seeing a little bit of a breakup myself. Let me close a few programs and stuff. Using my laptop for this might not have been the best solution. But let's take a look here. Okay, so let's see if that might clear some things up. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
What else do you guys have?
Just scientific revolution. Can you
Ask a question. Yeah.
Is it about? Okay. Can you tell us more about the women of the Enlightenment?
The women of the Enlightenment. Yeah.
Like women?
Yes. She wants to know about women in the Enlightenment.
Okay, it's a little early for that, don't you think? Like, no, but in all seriousness, now first of all, speaking of women, I need to go ahead and give a shout out to Carissa, who I think is not at the Hangout, but as according to Garrett, she's out of town. So Carissa, shout out to you. Now, women of the Enlightenment, I would say that the most important, I would say the most important woman of the Enlightenment. Keep in mind that you're not going to see a lot of women here because women did not have access to educational opportunities, the same educational opportunities as men. So in most cases, women are not really going to be cut out to be people of letters and that sort of thing. And most women, most of the involvement of women is going to be in hosting what are called salons, where the woman gets an influential woman gets a lot of philosophers together to have what really amounts to a dinner party with a lot of people trying to see who can be the most controversial or something like that, and who can say the most bombastic thing or whatever. And it was kind of a badge of honor if you could get somebody like Voltaire or Rousseau, Diderot to. Like I'm breaking up again. People to attend your salon. So that's really what you see for the most part. But then there were some people, such as Madame du Châtelet, who was Voltaire's mistress. Now, the thing is, this was a very interesting relationship. I read a book about them at some point, and what's interesting about it is this wasn't like some kind of sneaking around type thing. Madame du Châtelet was the wife of a nobleman, and this marriage was not a love marriage. It was a marriage that was set up by the families, all of that kind of stuff. So they didn't really, like at that time, amongst the upper classes, the man would maybe have 3 or 4 women on the side perhaps, and the woman was allowed one. And the woman, in this case, Madame du Châtelet, she fell in love with Voltaire. And what Voltaire did was he proposed to her husband that, hey, y'all own this chateau that's out in the countryside, and it's kind of in disrepair. I've got some money. Would you mind if I renovated this chateau and I can live there with your wife? And the guy's like, okay, I guess, if you're paying, whatever. And so Voltaire and Madame du Châtelet, they stayed in this place together out in the countryside, and they would do their work for a lot of the day. They would hang out, they would drink coffee. Voltaire was a big fan of caffeine. Like that's one of the things that some people say kind of spurred the Enlightenment. Like Voltaire drank a ridiculous amount of coffee. And he and Madame du Châtelet work. Now, Voltaire, here's the problem, that Voltaire was really interested in Newton, but he was a man of letters. And the sort of thing where I can tell you, okay, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if I put something in the refrigerator and it's warmer, and I put it in the refrigerator, then it will get colder or something. And that's the law of thermodynamics or something like that, I believe. That's new, right? Uh-oh, let me see. Am I breaking up?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try it. Give me just a second. I'm going to try taking this downstairs. I wanted to go up here where the natural light was, but I'm going to go ahead and take this show downstairs and try to see where I can get closer to my Wi-Fi or something like that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god, this is like the best. 17.
Oh, I see what's going on. This thing's playing my live Hangout. Let's see. Where is that? Come on, stop it. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my underground lair. All right.
That's so funny.
All right, so this is where the videos are filmed. This is my bookshelf and all that kind of stuff that that you see in the lectures a lot of the time. So let's go ahead and continue. All right, so I was talking about Voltaire and Madame du Châtelet. All right, so okay, and I've been disconnected from my beverages, so I'm going to have to just look into that real quick. All right, so what we're going to do here, let's see. Okay. All right, trying to find the right effect here. Google Hangouts has all those little things. All right, so we'll go with that. All right, and I'm going to plug in as well. All right, live Hangouts, sometimes a good time for experimentation, but not always. But then again, isn't an experimentation in line with the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment? Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. All right, so the thing is, I was telling the story about Voltaire and Madame du Châtelet, and they're living out in the chateau in the countryside where, you know, her husband owns it, but Voltaire renovated it, and they're doing their sciencey stuff. And Voltaire's a man of letters, but he doesn't understand all of the science behind Newton, but he knows that Newton's right. And what Voltaire wants to do is he wants to popularize Newton, that he wants to persuade the French to adopt Newtonian physics. But the problem is, like, look, I don't understand. And so Voltaire has to, the reason that he's interested in, Madame du Châtelet is she's really smart, and she was a mathematician, physicist, all that kind of stuff. So she would explain enough to Voltaire so that he could explain it to other people. And the thing is, this makes sense because Voltaire is what you call in science a popularizer, because Madame du Châtelet knows so much more than you that if you know nothing, she's not really going to be able to get through to you. So she was probably one of the most noteworthy women in the Enlightenment and a woman of the sciences. But just keep that in mind, that you're going to see very few women making some of these scientific discoveries and advancements because of the just the lack of educational opportunities for women in general.
What else, guys? So, like, how did the scientific revolution end? Did people just finding things out?
Did people what?
Did people just stop finding new things?
Well, the thing is, I mean, you could kind of say in a way that it's not that something ended or something like that. That this is a period of time. Now, Liz White, she's super great. She's staring at you in the live review. Okay, all right. I started reading that, and then it just got a little. Okay, all right. So anyway, that's that. Now, okay, well, cool. All right, Omar, where are you, Omar?
Over here.
There's Omar. Okay, so I'm just kind of catching up on Twitter. Seems like y'all are kind of my only audience, but that's fine. Oh, Carissa is here. She tuned in just in time. I feel like I'm there. This is great. All right. Well, that's great. All right, and Carissa's even got a picture there. I'm making the car ride 100 times better. All right. Well, that's great. Well, that's good that we shouted out to her then. All right. So when we look at this, what is our question right now? The scientific revolution. Why did it end or whatever? Okay. So I would say that really when you look at some of these movements, it's not so much that something ends as much as it maybe yields to something else. All right. So think about let's think about this in terms of periodization, which this is like a big deal on the new AP US history test, and it's probably going to be a big deal on next year's Euro test. But so I'm going to go over some like skills of periodization and that sort of thing. And so what you look at here is, let's think about the Renaissance. All right, what did the Renaissance, like, how did that introduce a change from the Middle Ages? What would y'all say to that?
Well, it was like a rebirth of like older ideas, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Greek and Roman ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, a rebirth of Greek and Roman ideas. Okay, so we see what's going on, that here. So a revival of Greek and Roman ideas. Now, is Greek and Roman ideas, this humanistic study and mindset, as that's materializing, what is having to yield? All right, who is paying the price? What institutions are paying the price for this revival of classicism?
What institutions are paying first?
We're asking.
He has to do that question.
The church?
Church, bingo. Okay, so the thing is, as humanistic studies become more popular, it's not that these people in the Renaissance were Christians. All right, so you see this, that they're good, committed Christians, all that kind of stuff, but they are more focused on human-centered thinking. All right, the Middle Ages, we got to thinking about, what's really most important is the salvation of our soul, and it's like, well, look, we've got some stuff here and now that we might want to do as well. So, So I want to do that, and we're starting to see a difference. Where's Galileo from, or where was he from? Past tense.
Italy.
Okay, he was from Italy. So where would we place Galileo? Like, the thing is that we see Galileo in the scientific revolution. All right, we see Galileo in the scientific revolution. Well, we would place him in Italy. So what would you say that it would be valid to note that perhaps Galileo is influenced by this new kind of humanistic way of thinking, this human-centered thinking that doesn't place quite as much emphasis on what the church says? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And so what you have here is that the Renaissance is kind of yielding to the scientific revolution, that you have some overlap here. And then people start, doing all this science stuff. Now, keep in mind also, what was the most important invention of the Renaissance?
Printing press.
The printing press, which the printing press was an enabling factor both for the Reformation and also for the scientific revolution. Because keep in mind, during the scientific revolution, these journals of these academies, like, the English Academy of Science and the French Academy of Science and all of these academies of sciences, they are able to exchange information. And this is bringing about a rebirth of science, and we're seeing more scientific progress in a period of 100 years than we saw in 2,000 years before that, but not possible without the Renaissance and its focus on human-centered thinking, of commerce, on invention. And keep in mind that the Renaissance, the commercial spirit of the Renaissance is part of what's creating the surplus wealth, and the surplus wealth is part of what's going to patronize the sciences. All right, so that's the thing, that we start to see all of this causal stuff. All right, man. Looks like Alex is joining us. Not missing a Euro hangout. Hey there, Alex. Good to see you, and all that kind of stuff. And Jacob is eating pizza. I don't know if he's in there with that class, but regardless, he's having some pizza. That's pretty awesome. Are y'all okay? So y'all are eating pizza. That's amazing. Now keep in mind, the morning of the exam, I do a breakfast review. And y'all are on the West Coast, so it's going to, y'all have to be there maybe a little early, or y'all catch the back end of it. But I encourage people to tune in and eat breakfast with us. So we'll start at about like 9 a.m. Eastern. So 6 a.m., let's see, about 6 a.m. your time, but we'll keep on going. So by the time y'all get up, don't get up at 6 a.m. Don't do that. That's for the birds. But anyway, so the Renaissance yields to the scientific revolution because you've got the printing press, you've got the human-centered thinking, the emphasis on Greco-Roman learning, and then patronage, okay, patronage of the arts and sciences, because you have these people with surplus income from the Renaissance, emphasis on commerce. So the more we start to emphasize science, then people start thinking, okay, well, what about applying these scientific principles to society, whether it be religion, whether it be government, whether it be human nature, and let's start looking askance at some of these authorities. You know, we've been trusting the church and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe we should look for ourselves. Like, keep this in mind that, you know, Descartes, he said that in all things we should doubt, all right, that it benefits us to doubt all things at least once. Now, that to me sounds kind of like the spirit of the Enlightenment when we think about, when we think about the, what am I getting at here? I was trying to adjust my camera and talk at the same time. Not a good idea. So you think about empiricism, where Descartes' like, look, you need to doubt everything at least once, and even your own existence. I think, therefore I am. That's kind of how he figured out this whole Gordian knot of his existence. You know, it's like, oh, how do I figure out if I exist? Oh, I'm thinking. That's right. I wouldn't be thinking if I didn't exist. Okay, next question, please. Now that I've established the fact that I exist. So this is going to yield to the Enlightenment, where now that we've put so much emphasis on science, we can use this for society. Now, then, what is the Enlightenment going to influence?
Of course, the Enlightenment influence.
Okay, such as what revolution would be most conspicuous about being influenced by the Enlightenment?
No. What did we just talk about? What did the Enlightenment? What revolution did the Enlightenment influence?
All right, passion. I like it.
What did I just say? He copied all the ideas.
Like all the American
Revolution.
The American and French Revolutions.
Okay. So the American and French revolutions are both influenced by the Enlightenment. Now check this out, okay? So then we see here that, Jefferson writes in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that these are among these, now not just all of them, but among these are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Now who's Jefferson borrowing that from?
John Locke.
John Locke. Okay, so really kind of pre-Enlightenment, scientific revolution era. So you see that the American Revolution's being influenced by this. And then the French Revolution in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen is also being influenced by the Enlightenment, being influenced by these, Jeffersonian ideas, by Rousseau to an extent, to the extent that they even understood Rousseau, to the extent that any of us really understand Rousseau. But you see that, and then as a result here, what you see when we think about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, let's fast forward to the 19th century. What ism comes up here?
Industrialism?
Oh, liberalism.
Well, okay, so two things here. The industrial, classical liberalism, which focuses on, keep in mind what Jefferson's talking about, is that everyone has a right to life, then to the sanctity of their person. Everyone has a right to liberty. Everyone has a right to be free in civil liberties, speech, press, religion, assemblies, petitions, all that stuff you already saw in the English Bill of Rights. But also the pursuit of happiness, which we're talking about economic freedom, which is the key to understanding classical liberalism, is this emphasis on economic freedom and the government staying out of the economy. Now, of course, Adam Smith was a very influential philosopher. I need to get my hand out of the way so it's invisible, you see? All right, we got that invisible hand thing going on. And so the Enlightenment, is kind of influencing all that. See, can you see my hand here?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Yeah, not really.
It's invisible. All right, so yeah, don't lie. You don't really see that. All right, but anyway, this whole idea of a deregulated economy, of economic freedom, which is going to spur the Industrial Revolution, and it's going to bring about this kind of era of liberalism in the early 19th century, and you're going to see all of this economic progress that's happening to the extent that now, of course, then you see other philosophies like, the liberal era ends up kind of, people are like, well, hey, we're poor, and, this thing has kind of screwed us. And, you see kind of the advent of various socialist philosophies. And what's interesting, there's a guy that I've read, Frederick Bastiat, who was a French classical liberal in the mid-19th century. And there's an essay that he wrote on what he called perfectibility, that the philosophes, they thought that we're heading toward this perfectibility, that science and reason and freedom will work together to make the world a better place. And that's going to happen. But then Bastiat looks and he sees that, you know, socialism is compromising this economic freedom that was so important to the Enlightenment and to the liberals. And Kant, you know, he said, what does the Enlightenment need to spread? It needs freedom. And Frederick Bastiat is looking at what's going on as the socialists gained influence in France. And in 1850, around 1850, he asked the question in this essay about perfectibility because he sees humanity taking a step back, that like, look, we've had all this economic freedom and we have all this economic progress, and now all people are talking about is taking what we have and distributing it around instead of taking what we have and making more. You know, which is in that liberal tradition. And Bastiat, in a moment of frustration, he asked, are we not living in an age of enlightenment? And, you know, we think about, okay, this guy's writing in 1850. It's like, hey, buddy, that was before. Like, that's kind of over. But the thing is that Bastiat and other classical liberals, that they weren't really conscious of the Enlightenment being over. And in a lot of ways, you might think about the Enlightenment's really not necessarily over. Now, of course, it kind of, you know, you have some reactionaries because you have the socialists, you have the romantics, but I would say that the Enlightenment remains very influential because while, you know, religion is still a big factor in the United States, I remember after Hurricane Katrina, which I don't know if y'all even remember Hurricane Katrina, but after that, there was a minister. There were a few people, like Jerry Falwell and some others, they were saying, you know what, I guess that's God getting back at the gays. And y'all hear something like that, and do y'all find that credible? Like, oh, well, God kind of like picked New Orleans. He was like, okay, I need to teach the gays a lesson, so I'm going to put a hurricane there going toward New Orleans so that they'll kind of get that wake-up call. Anybody buy that?
No.
Okay, no. That's the Enlightenment. Okay, so the Enlightenment continues to influence people even today. And that's where, you know, so hopefully you can kind of see where I'm getting at here, that all of these things work together. Now, of course, you can even talk about, like, you know, Hegel, who gets into, like, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So if you look at it from a Hegelian point of view, which I'm starting to kind of try to employ and understand. So if anybody's like professional philosopher watching, forgive me if I'm oversimplifying. But you look at, you know, the Enlightenment, which is questioning, you know, this this whole idea of, you know, the church and all of that kind of stuff and authorities. Now, of course, we're not rational. Totally, we're emotional as well. So the thing is, you've got the Enlightenment, you could say, as a thesis, and then what would be the antithesis of the Enlightenment that comes around?
I don't know.
No.
The antithesis. Who would be like, don't give me any of that Enlightenment. I don't like that stuff.
Like church.
Church.
Well, possibly the church, but I'm thinking the Romantics, okay? The Romantic movement, which William Blake, when he looks at the mills of the Industrial Revolution. Now, the Enlightenment, it's like, hey, this is human progress. This is science, that we're getting more efficient. And William Blake looks at that and he's like, look at those dark, satanic mills. And, you know, the Romantics are like, hey, the Middle Ages were cool, you know, and God is cool and church is cool, and especially a Catholic church, because Catholic churches are really pretty. And I want to go outside. I don't want to go to a factory. I want to look at nature and think about how pretty it is. And so really you've got the Enlightenment, which is all about rationality. Then you've got the Romanticism, which is about emotion. And really, if you think about it, you've got the thesis and the antithesis, and what we see today is kind of a synthesis of that, because while we're a scientific society in a lot of ways, we are also very emotional people as well. And so we see kind of a synthesis of the Enlightenment and Romanticism. So I would say that really none of these things are, you know, none of these things are really over, because they continue to influence us.
Oh, okay. Oh, so the question. He's frozen. Or is he just getting down? Oh.
All right, lots of whispering. Anybody want to come forward with a question?
I don't have a question.
I have one. How did the spirit of the Renaissance contribute to the beginnings of the scientific revolution?
Wait, what?
Where did you find that question, Jacob?
You like you like worded it perfectly? I want to know.
Oh, lots of laughter. Do y'all get the feeling that he didn't hear what I just said?
No.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah, we were just kind of going over that, but glad you're with us. And yeah, that's the thing. That really, it's just the Renaissance produces the scientific revolution in a lot of ways, through the printing press, through the emphasis on human-centered thinking, Greco-Roman learning, and that's going to kind of go toward that. You know, having that extra money to patronize the sciences and that sort of thing, and in addition to the arts. So that's where you have the Renaissance, you know, as kind of a causal factor for the scientific revolution.
What?
There's a person who asked on the video.
Well, then ask her for it. Ask the.
Okay. Is there a good way to remember all of the absolute monarchs in Prussia?
Okay, let's see. Now that would actually, I don't know why I did that, because that would be like anti-Prussia, because Prussia is not like about peace. Like Jesus is like, you know, Voltaire's Jesus is, I didn't come to bring a sword, but peace. The Prussians are like, peace? Like, like that is not happening. Now, here we go. The monarchs in Prussia. The best thing about the Prussians is that they are not very creative. They're just not. And their names, like Prussian monarchs, they're all named Frederick William or Frederick William, pretty much. I mean, just about all of them that you see is going to be some kind of variant of that sort of dynamic. So what you're going to see here is, besides Frederick the Great, like I've never seen a question on the AP European History exam that would require you to differentiate between Fredericks. So that's why in my lecture on Prussia, while I do talk about the soldier king, you know, Frederick, you know, the soldier king who's just, or the Soldatenkönig, you know, that sort of thing, whatever German you want to say that, but I think about what you want to think about is not so much differentiating between all of the Prussian monarchs as much as just noting the Prussian emphasis on militarism and really understanding Prussia and understanding that you've got the great elector, you've got the soldier king, you've got Frederick the Great, but there is never going to be a question, hopefully not, because then y'all would probably not be very pleased with me, but you know, as far as keep in mind it's a survey level course, so they're not going to ask you to differentiate. So keep in mind that you do need to associate Frederick the Great with enlightened absolutism, but it's not as important that you know every little difference between the Fredericks and the Williams and the Frederick Williams.
Thank you. What else? Okay, do you have any more about scientific revolution enlightenment? Any other questions just in general? What other topics?
Would you say that Prussia's militarism influences how they react to World War I and World War II?
Yes. Yeah. Now, pretty much now you can watch my newest video is one of my newest videos on the causes of World War I. That's the latest like formal long form lecture that I've got. Now, if you're going to look for that, I would ask you to go ahead and just look in the YouTube search engine. Don't go to my channel. Go to the YouTube search engine. Look up causes of World War I. Click my video. Watch the whole thing. Even if you get tired of it, press the mute button and just let it keep going so it gets a full view. Like it or dislike it if you want, that still engages, and comment on it. If y'all can help me out, like right now, my video, which is about going on 2 weeks old, it is, I think, number 8 right now when you type in causes of World War I. So with the help of Miss Kline's class, with my live audience, keep in mind that y'all are the ones, like any success I have on YouTube, I just passed 1 million views over this week, a couple days ago.
Wow.
Okay. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I was holding for applause. That was an applause line. So that's something that happened. But keep in mind that it's really because of people like you who are supporting what I'm doing. And just keep in mind when you comment, when you like or dislike, comments weigh in really a lot because then YouTube's like, oh, this person must really like this video. So keep in mind when you engage with the videos, when you don't just watch them, it helps my standing on YouTube and helps me to get my content out there to more people. But I would encourage you to look at that because the causes of World War I are identified frequently as the quote-unquote main causes, the first one being militarism. And I would say now I've also got a recent lecture series on German unification. And German unification is a causal factor because what it is, I was hearing somebody talk about this not too long ago, that Germany, once it unifies, they're not content with just being a great power. That the Prussians are so ambitious. They started off as this small principality, and they, throughout this course, they work their way up to becoming the greatest power in Europe, and they want to become a superpower. That really France had been the threat to the balance of power before. You look at Napoleon, you look at Louis XIV, and these threats to the balance of power. And with France being that kind of threat to the balance of power, it yields to Prussia because Prussia embraces industrialization. They've already got this modern military, so that's something that is important as far as that goes. But yeah, Prussian militarism definitely World War I and World War II because that's really influential. And although you may not say that Germany quote unquote started World War I, if they hadn't been such a military power, it might not have turned out the way it did. Who knows? But definitely a causal factor.
Thank you.
What else? Just anything, guys.
All right, I'm going on. It looks like we're going on about 4 o'clock, and I don't see. I'm going to go ahead and call this on Twitter too. If anybody's watching on Twitter, it looks like we got about 14 other viewers. I'm going to go ahead and call a last call. If you've got some more questions, especially if they're quick or whatever, let's go ahead. I'm not going to cut y'all off at 4 o'clock, but let's go ahead and just kind of think about a last call scenario. If you've got any more questions for me, let's go ahead and get those out there.
Do you guys have anything?
Let's see if anyone said anything.
I think from our class they're pretty content.
Okay, well that's good. I guess between Miss Kline and me, we have kind of addressed all of your stuff. This was great. This was kind of a last-minute thing, and if any of y'all are out there that are watching this and your class has really been supportive, I want to stress that Miss Kline and her class have really been supportive of me online, and I really like to help people out that are doing that. So, a lot of people who retweet, favorite, all that kind of stuff, Instagram, Twitter, and in addition to engaging the videos. So, thank y'all for all that you do to help.
No.
You're welcome.
If you've ever got a study set, me, and when question that's going on, be sure to do that. And Miss Kline's class, it has definitely been a pleasure.
You're frozen in our. Oh, there you are. They were wondering if we could put the computer over there with them and take a picture with you.
That is fine. I will certainly be glad to take a picture.
All right. Here. No, we'll go right here.
Oh.
Okay, we'll put the. You guys get behind. I'll take the picture.
Behind?
Yay! I'm so excited. Yay!
Jamie's like standing there.
Oh, do I have to get? I will send it to you. I promise. Get in there. Get in there. Some people have to get down.
That's not gonna
be me. Hustle. Ready? Ready?
Oh yeah.
Ready? 1, 2.
Wait.
3. Thank you.
Thank you. I love you.
All right, thank y'all, Miss Kline's class. It has been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll see y'all again sometime before the exam. I'm going to be really ramping up the frequency of these things. So y'all keep studying for this exam, otherwise it's going to get you and you're going to fail, and you're not going to like that. What a waste of Saturdays and all that kind of stuff. So do whatever Miss Kline tells you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see y'all soon. Until next time.
Bye.
So funny.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
I don't know how to.